Jews remained there. They then continued to proceed. In the meantime, a devotee tailor took the opportunity of service and prepared some nice clothes from the cloth for Krishna and Balaram. Thus, being very nicely attired, Krishna and Balaram looked like elephants dressed with colored clothing on the full moon day of the dark moon. Krishna was very much pleased with the tailor and gave him the benediction of Samkhya-mukti, which means after leaving his body he would be liberated and would attain a body exactly like four-handed Narayan in the Vaikuntha planets. He also granted him that as long as he would live, he would earn sufficient opulence to be able to enjoy sense gratification. By this incident, Krishna proved that those who are Krishna-conscious devotees will not be lacking material enjoyment or sense gratification. They will have sufficient opportunity for such things, but after leaving this life, they will be allowed to enter the spiritual planets of Vaikuntha Loka or Krishna Loka or Goloka Vrindavan. After dressing nicely, Krishna and Balaram went to a florist of the name Sudama. As soon as they reached the precinct of his house, the florist immediately came out and with great devotion fell down on his face to offer his respectful obeisances. He offered a nice seat to Krishna and Balaram and asked his assistant to bring out flowers of betel nuts smeared with pulp of chandan. The florist's welcome greatly satisfied the Lord. The florist very humbly and submissively offered his prayers to the Lord, saying, "My dear Lord, because you have come to my place, I think all my forefathers and all my worshipable superiors are pleased and delivered. My dear Lord, you are the supreme cause of all causes of this cosmic manifestation, but for the benefit of the residents of this earthly planet, you have appeared with your plenary portion to give protection to your devotees and annihilate the demons. You are equally disposed as the friend of all living entities. You are the Supersoul, and you do not discriminate between friend and enemy. Yet you are pleased to give your devotees a special result of their devotional activities. My Lord, I am praying that you please tell me whatever you wish me to do, because I am your eternal servant. If you will allow me to do something, it will be a great favor to me." The florist Sudam was greatly pleased within his heart by seeing Krishna and Balaram in his place, and thus, as his choicest desire, he made 2 exquisite garlands of various flowers and presented them to the Lord. Both Krishna and Balaram were very pleased with his sincere service, and Krishna offered the florist his salutation and benediction, which he is always prepared to bestow upon the surrendered souls. When the florist was offered benediction, he begged from the Lord that he might remain his eternal servant in devotional service, and by such service do good to all living creatures. By this it is clear that a devotee of the Lord in Krishna consciousness should not be simply satisfied by his own advancement in devotional service. He must be willing to work for the welfare of all others. This example was followed by the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. It is therefore stated in their prayer, "Lokanam hitikarinam," Vaishnavas or devotees of the Lord are not selfish. Whatever benefit they derive from the Supreme Personality of Godhead as benediction, they want to distribute to all other persons. That is the greatest of all humanitarian activities. Being satisfied with the florist, Lord Krishna not only gave him benediction for whatever he wanted, but over and above that, he offered him all material opulences, family prosperity, long duration of life, and whatever else his heart desired within the material world. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 2nd volume, 6th chapter of Krishna. Krishna enters Mathura. So, in this very beautiful and exciting chapter of Krishna book, we find in a very practical way, in a very graphic and practical way, the distinction between devotee of the Lord, and non-devotee is very clearly made. I'm referring again to what we read before, when some philosopher, scholar like Dr. Radhakrishna writes a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, then many people around the world think that, oh, here is someone who knows something about Krishna. They think he is a pious Hindu Brahmin, he is well versed in Hindu philosophy, so he's an authority in Krishna consciousness. Of course, we're talking about people who have not had much contact with the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, because if they had such contact, they would very quickly learn the real position of Dr. Radhakrishna. But just the general public who may be interested to know what is Bhagavad Gita, they go to the library, to the bookstore, and they find some edition, and they take it and read it. And they think, oh, this is someone who knows something about Krishna. But to know something about Krishna, or to be knowledgeable about Krishna, in fact, means to be devotee of Krishna, which means, in practical fact, to render service to Krishna. And we see in the case of that washerman, he wanted to correct Krishna. Now this is exactly also what Dr. Radhakrishnan is doing in his commentary. Krishna is saying one thing, surrender to me, and Dr. Radhakrishnan is saying, my dear young man, I have practical experience. Just he was making, his commentary is just like this washerman. It is not to you whom we must serve, but to the inborn, the unborn within you, the impersonal eternal. So he's correcting Krishna. So there may be some connection to Krishna, like that washerman. There's some connection that he could see Krishna face to face, that Krishna offered him, render some service to me, give me these clothes. But then this washerman was so puffed up, so proud, that he thought, I will correct this foolish young boy. And so Krishna immediately silenced him by severing his head, the upper portion of his hand. So similarly, a scholar like Dr. Radhakrishnan, it's very interesting to also note how he spent the last years of his life. He was preaching this impersonalism, which means that God does not speak, God does not walk, God does not move and have sensory activities, and so on and so forth. So Dr. Radhakrishnan, for the last, I don't know how many years, several years at least of his life, he was paralyzed completely. He had some stroke. And so he was forced to lie in the bed and not talk and not move. So in this way he could himself learn what is this impersonal existence really like. And I hope, for his sake, that perhaps at some time during that suffering condition he did reflect that could God really exist eternally in this sort of condition that I'm in? Could this state really be the divine state? No, of course not. So Krishna is the supreme person, supreme transcendental spiritual person. He has senses and he enjoys with his senses. But what does he enjoy? Actually, he enjoys the loving devotion of his servants, of his bhaktas. So we see that the tailor, the devotee tailor, and Sudama, the flower seller, they immediately stepped forward to render service to Krishna. So, and then Krishna blessed them with his personal association in this life and in the next existence in the spiritual world. So, actually Krishna, as we heard, Srila Prabhupada explained, quoting this Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, this verse, Krishna is non-different. Abhinadvan Nama Nami No. Abhinadvan means Abhina. Abhina means not separated. So the Nami means he who is named, and the Nama, the name itself, they're not separate in Krishna's case. The name of Krishna is Krishna. So, and when we receive the holy name of Krishna, or we receive Krishna Katha, like we were hearing the Krishna book, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, then Pravishtakarna Randrena Dunoti, the Pavishtakarna Randrayana Shvanam Bhava Saroruham. Yes. Dunoti Shamalam Krishna Shalilasya Yatashara. Bhagavatam says, this sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, Lord Krishna in this form of sound, enters our heart through the ears. He descends, just like he descends into this world to display his pastimes. So when we hear and chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the Lord is descending into our heart and taking up his seat there. Turning our heart into his own throne or his altar. And what should we do then? And we should worship him. The Lord comes into our heart and gives us this opportunity to worship him. So we should always remember that when we're chanting Hare Krishna, this is not some symbolic sound. It is not that there's some unborn somewhere behind the sound. The sound leads us to this unborn. But the sound of Krishna's holy name, or the sound we just heard of Krishna's pastimes, that is Krishna. So we are associating with Krishna directly. And so what should be our response? We should render service. We should become very enthusiastic for serving the Lord, knowing him to be present within us. After all, Hare Krishna mantra, what does it mean? My dear Lord, O energy of the Lord, please engage me in your blissful service. This is the meaning of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, the Hare Krishna mantra is a mantra which is specifically meant to excite the living entity, actually excite our spiritual consciousness, excite the mood of devotion, bhakti. So, the one who is chanting and hearing properly, with properly understanding that the holy name and the Lord are the same, will become very enthusiastic to render service, and render service from the heart. You see, Krishna has descended from within the heart, and we live as jiva soul, and that is our dwelling place, the heart. This is the root of our personality, the heart. So when we speak of sincerity, sincere service to Krishna, then we're speaking of service which originates in the heart. The heart has become opened by the Hare Krishna mantra, and Krishna has entered there. So our service to Krishna should begin there. Not that our service begins on the mental platform, or on the gross physical platform. You see, that would mean that one is serving Krishna impelled by some speculation or impelled by some material desire. So this sort of motivation is not very solid. So real devotion means that it is service that begins in the heart itself. Now the heart is also, as you know, the heart is also the place of contamination. That Shikshashtakam prayer, Cheto Garparamarjanam, Lord Chaitanya is saying that the mirror of the heart has been covered by dust in the form of material desires, anarthas, which have accumulated there for many, many millions of earths. So our consciousness, which originates in the core of the heart, you see, it shines through this dusty covering and then comes out as it is now. Comes out in this form of this bodily consciousness in which we think that I am the body, right? Enjoying of this world, all perverted. So this is also very important to understand that unless we render our service from the standpoint of the heart, from the standpoint of the living of the real self within the heart, unless we do like that, then our service, which we may render in some abstract position out in the space of mental speculation, you see, it will become very easily contaminated by the dirt that is there within the heart. If you're thinking, I am the mind, if that's where you're positioning your consciousness, somewhere in the mental plane, then you won't be able to understand. You see, you'll be trying to serve Krishna, but you won't be able to understand. How is it that in spite of my effort to serve Krishna, still lust, anger, greed, all these dirty things, they arise within my consciousness, and they pollute my devotional service. How is it that it's happening again and again? And that is also because we have not seriously attempted to actually render service at the very root of ourself. Now this may sound all very esoteric, but this is actually explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam says that by constant remembrance of anudya means to always remember Krishna, then he's given a sword, anudyasina. This constant remembrance of Krishna means that the devotee is given a sword of spiritual knowledge, kovida. Kovida means spiritual intelligence. So what does he do with this sword? He cuts through chindanti karma nirbandham. He cuts through that very thick, very complex knot of karma in the heart. This is what we're speaking of, the dirt within the heart. Our heart, our soul, has been bound up by a great entangling knot of karma which stretches back for as long as we have been in this material existence. So you won't be able to unravel that knot by mental speculation, by reading lots of various philosophical books, by thinking this way and that way about your life. You certainly won't be able to unravel that knot of karma by physical efforts. We need this sword of constant remembrance of Krishna. So, how do we get that constant remembrance of Krishna? Ko na kuyat pratim kata. So that constant remembrance of Krishna comes when one is actually attracted. Pratim kata. So kata means the subject of Krishna. Krishna kata. Any discussion or any talk which has to do about Krishna. Pratim means attraction. So when one derives pleasure, nectar, from hearing about Krishna, then this effects this constant remembrance. So again, this all takes place in the heart. When the sound vibration of Krishna Katha penetrates the ears and enters the heart, and when we receive it in our heart, then it becomes very, very sweet. Receiving it in the heart means to take it very, very seriously. Very, very seriously, one is trying to hear and understand and remember. And so, in this way, a sweet taste develops. And by this sweet taste alone, one is always remembering what one has heard. It's very natural. So then, by always remembering what we have heard, then one gets this sword of transcendental knowledge. And one can cut through the knot of karma and sever our connection with lust, anger, greed, madness, illusion, envy. But as long as we're keeping our consciousness, somewhere out in space, you see, halfway here and halfway out there, and we go through the day hearing about Krishna but not hearing, you see, and serving Krishna but at the same time not serving, really dreaming, spacing out, flights of fancy, imagine, whatever. Then that hard knot of karma remains intact. And then the devotee, or shall we say the person who would like to become a devotee, he continually has problems in his devotional service, his attempt to render service to Krishna, again and again. When he engages his senses in the sense objects with the purpose of serving Krishna, somehow or other those sense objects, they remind him of sense gratification, nonetheless. And he becomes agitated and disturbed. And then he gets, because he's on the mental plane, then he gets into this bhoga tyaga frame of mind. He may try to enjoy the facilities of devotional service, but then he gets frustrated in that attempt, and then he tries to give it up. Oh, this service is too much. Oh, I quit. And the poor temple president has to get out his list of devotees who can replace this Prabhu, because now he has to do something else because he's fried in that service. And then he tells the new Prabhu, but anyway, this will be temporary because I know him. He'll get fried in that service and he'll come back in this way. Now this is all because the mind is not being drawn down to the very root of the self in the heart. Where Krishna, he's entering and he's waiting there. Just imagine, in your heart, there's an altar. I'm speaking of all those who are devotees or aspiring devotees who hear about Krishna, who have accepted spiritual master or who are aspiring to accept spiritual master. And already Krishna has entered your heart. And there's a beautiful altar there. And there is arrangement for puja. There are lamps to be lit. There is incense to be offered. There is chamara fan, peacock fan. Everything is there. Where's the pujari? This is the question. Like, sometimes it happens when you visit a temple. Everyone's standing before the closed curtain of the altar, looking at their watch. It's already 2 minutes after 7. Where's the pujari? So let that not happen, either in the temple, in the ISKCON temple, because what happens in the ISKCON temple is simply the external manifestation of what's happening in our heart. Things don't happen by accident. You see, it's not by accident that someone coming to do the arti with the freshly washed altar tray, all the items are there, all the puja paraphernalia. He trips on the stairs and falls down. Everything goes clattering in all directions. This is not by accident. These are external manifestations of what is going on in the heart. So let not in the ISKCON temple our service become negligent and mistake-ridden because we are spaced out. And let not in the temple of our heart, where Krishna has come in his sound incarnation to receive our worship, let not the service there being neglected. So I would like to stop here. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I don't suppose there's any questions. Generally there's not. But maybe someone has a question. You can ask it now. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.